I'm Tim Christy, the head baseball coach at Myrtle Beach High School in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Growing up in our neighborhood, you played everything. And the great thing about it is you might play everything in the same day. We would get up in the morning, play basketball, let the grass dry, go out, play football, might play some 3-on-3 baseball, ride bikes. We kind of did it all. Legend has it, as my mom tells the story, that I sat through my first full 9 innings of baseball on television when I was 2, and I was hooked after that. My earliest recollection of playing baseball was when I was 7. Then in the early 70s, it wasn't like it is now, where you had coach pitch or machine pitch. Everybody just played. When you were able to play, you started to play. And that stands out in my mind because that was my first baseball uniform, and that was special. And I remember we lived in an apartment building with a gentleman down below who played semi-pro baseball, as they called it. And he was the one that taught me how to wear my socks, how to wear my stirrups, high part in the back, how to dress my pants so that they looked uniform. And after that, I was just hooked. I've played baseball all my life. Went on to play high school baseball. There were big wins and big losses. The biggest game that stands out was the game to go to the state tournament, because we were the first baseball team in our school's history to ever play in the state tournament in West Virginia. And it was a 1-0 game that was won in the bottom of the 7th on a suicide squeeze. And there was a picture of their catcher laying face down at home plate that actually ended up being an AP photo, and we would have people send us those pictures from all over the country and all over the world. It would show up in various papers here and there. It was kind of the epitome of the agony of defeat, if you will. The guy laying on home plate face down, and this little school, this Cinderella, kind of a Hoosier story, going to the state tournament, going to the big city. As a kid, I always remember I never wanted to be a truck driver, a fireman, or a doctor. The only thing I ever wanted to do was be a baseball player. So logically, college was the next step in that evolution. I went to Marshall University in Huntington, West Virginia for $500. That was my scholarship. The thing I believe that all high school players kind of have in their mind is they're going to get to college and roll on. What they don't understand is that when you go to college to play baseball, everybody's good. So as a freshman, I did not play very much. I will never forget, I had 0-50, 1 for 20, solo home run against VMI, last game of the season. And that was a big deal at the time. But what it taught me more than anything was how to be humble, because you come out of high school as a hot shot and you go to college as a nobody. From there, I played 2 years at Marshall University. Then my father lost his job, and it was going to be very difficult for my parents to help me pay for the rest of my college education there. So I transferred to West Virginia State College, where I could get an academic scholarship and my college be paid for. And that's how I ended up at West Virginia State. And I'm a strong believer in things happen for a reason. At West Virginia State, I was coached by just a tremendous coach, Calvin Bailey, who incidentally will retire next year after his 36th season of college baseball. And it was just, it was a great learning experience, both in baseball and in life, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. My last college game at West Virginia State, that would have been the spring of 1987, I suppose. It was an extra inning game, called by darkness, against the University of Charleston, our arch rival. So we had to come back the next day and finish it. And this is what I will never forget. My grandmother had passed away the day before, 2 days before this game. So I was playing on a little bit of spin emotion. I was close to my grandmother. Leadoff guy got on, stole second, and I was intentionally walked. I happened to know the assistant coach on the other team, and he said, that's a real sign of respect. And, I didn't think about it at the time because I was angry that they had walked me. But at the same time, later on, as I've gotten older, I've remembered that feeling of saying, that's pretty good. Your last at bat, you get an intentional walk. After that, my college coach called me in his office and he said, I know you have some school left over. How would you like to be my assistant coach next year and be our third base coach? I really never thought the day would come that somebody would tell me that I wasn't good enough to play anymore, but it did. And that dream of playing professional baseball kind of went away. But at the same time, the excitement of knowing that I would always be involved in the game if I wanted to be kind of took over from there. And the rest is history, as they say. There's a reason baseball is America's pastime. I remember from a very young age learning lessons from this game that you can't learn anyplace else. Number one, which I think is more important than anything else, is how to be humble. This game, more than any other game on earth, will humble you because this is a game of failure. I tell players constantly, you have to be able to handle adversity to be successful in this game. There is not another profession on earth where you can fail 2 out of every 3 times you attempt to do something and still make $17 million a year. But baseball is that game. I can fail 2 out of 3, hit .333, and I'm going to be in the Hall of Fame in 15 years, guaranteed. It's a game that gives rewards to the people who put in the most work. We talk all the time on our team about to have things you've never had, you have to do things you've never done. You have to work harder than you think you can work to get better and to be successful in this game. There are many ups and downs in this game for me, both as a player and a coach. At my lowest point, somebody once upon a time told me, you know what, Tim, you're just not good enough to play anymore. And I was crushed. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I was crushed and had some private moments of self-pity and sorrow, but my parents, my grandparents, they have always been the types of people who have always grabbed their bootstraps and pulled them right back up and gotten right back after it. And that's pretty much what I did, getting into the coaching profession, having the best of both worlds, being around the greatest game in the world and still being able to get a paycheck for doing it. And I still contend that I have the greatest job in the world. I don't want to coach in college. I don't want to coach in professional baseball. These kids are what is most important to me. And I think that the guys that are best at doing this job are the ones who are humble and who understand it's about the kids. I've never been one to keep track of personal records. I could not tell you what my career record is because it doesn't matter. It's not important. The legacy that I want to leave as a coach is to have players who will say to me and to other people that that's a good man who taught me a little bit about baseball and a lot about life. He taught me how to be a man. He helped me to grow up as an individual and as an adult. That's what's most important to me. Baseball at its highest point for me as a coach would undoubtedly be a day in August, and I don't remember the year, but I got to see one of my former high school players make his major league debut. We were going home that weekend to see our parents. My mother-in-law called and said, our church is going to a baseball game in Cincinnati. Would you like to go? And of course I said, I would absolutely like to have a seat on that bus. She said, I'm going to get you a ticket. Literally 10 minutes later, the phone rang, and this young man's name was Josh Hall. Josh pitched for me at EC Glass in Lynchburg, was drafted in the 7th round. And at that time, he was playing in AA in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And he called, and I said, hey man, how you doing? He said, Coach, I'm doing great. Are you sitting down? And I said, no, but I can. He said, I'm pitching for the big club on Saturday in Cincinnati against the San Francisco Giants. And I said, you know what, you're not going to believe this. I just got a ticket for that game. And the next words out of his mouth were, well, now you got better seats. It was such a mesmerizing experience to show up there and to see someone who you had an impact on his life, a direct impact, walk out of that dugout. And I'll never remember going to the usher and saying, "Hey man, I need to go right down there and say hello to that guy. I was his high school coach." And he said, "Absolutely." And I remember he wore number 51, and I said, "Hey, 51." And he turned around and he said, "Coach, how does this look?" And I said, "It looks pretty good." I said, "How's it feel?" He said, "It feels great." And that was an unbelievable experience to get to see him do that. And later on that year, I got to see him pitch on ESPN, and he's a great testament to the work ethic that I try to instill in all my players, not just the good ones. That was probably the pinnacle of my career at that point, but every year as things continue to progress, there are always pinnacles as a coach. Year in and year out. A few years ago, my center fielder was a good player, did not go to college to play baseball. He's in the ministry. Some have gone on to do great things in business. You just look at this year's team, where I have a young man named Brandon Dorsey who lost his father when Brandon was 7 in a tragic accident. And he just this week signed his national letter of intent to get to go to college and realize his dream of playing college baseball. That, for me, is what it's all about. The difference between the good players and the great players is that a great player is able to see the big picture. You can't just focus on the moment. You have to focus on what we teach here is task over ego. You have to take care of the task at hand and leave your ego behind. And how that contributes to the big picture and the success of your team is paramount for these kids to understand. God has a plan. He has a plan for all of us. It's for that reason why I have always felt like things happen for a reason. I try not to question things. I try to, move on, keep moving forward, keep pressing forward, and keep teaching these young guys how to play the game and how to be good people. My name is Tim Christy. Life is a game, but baseball, now that's serious.